everyone, welcome to the technical training on v42 and new features that are coming up on this new version of NetSapiens. I hope everyone's doing okay, and let's go ahead and get started. So a couple of things that we're going to be talking about today for the version that is coming up on version 42. One of the coolest features, in my opinion, is of course responsive portal changes, going through the different seeing how it's changed in terms of responsiveness for different screen sizes, mobile accessibility, things like that. Call queue improvements, and that goes over not just statistic improvements, but also actually being able to view the reports as a supervisor or an agent. One of everyone's favorites, the ability to dispatch queue agents by user, not just per device. Cradle to grave reporting, call trace redesign, SNAPMobile Web Enhancements, enhanced 911 support, which we'll go over a bit as well. Unified QoS, the ability to view QoS scores from the manager portal, regardless of the core that you are assigned to. And then, of course, some minor improvements and bug fixes. I do also want to take a minute to talk about just some other things in v42. v41, one of the really great things about it was a lot of features that had come into play, not just with Snap HD and native facts, but also a bunch of additional features with call center additions and user management and things like that. v42 really focuses on not just adding new features, but major bug fixes and improvements in the general usability of the platform. This update was expected to be about 60% bug fixes. By the time they were done, it turned out to be about 75%. So it's been a major focus on that. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into our first new feature. Responsive portal changes. So this is how the portal looks in v41. We're all familiar with it. There's a lot of white space, and if you've ever had to log into it through your cell phone or a tablet, it's not very responsive. There are some usability issues in terms of managing things like answering rules, and just in general, it was pretty difficult to use. v42 completely changes that. We now have a lot more used up white space, so it's a lot less empty space here. You can see we're now taking up a lot more of the screen, so you guys can see things a lot better. You have a lot more flexibility and control in being able to see those things. Here's a narrow version of the same thing. As you can see now that we're scrolling in, you know, it's still minimizing, so it's a little bit smaller, but we're still taking up and utilizing as much of the space as we can. Call queue improvements. So just some of the things, like I said, with the call queue usability and things like that. First of all, when you're viewing reports in the call queue as a call center supervisor or agent, all columns are now sortable. The download and export of statistics has also been improved. So before, when you were doing exports or downloading data, it was a little bit difficult because it didn't quite look like it did when you were viewing the reports. So it was a little bit confusing for users. It didn't make for a great experience. We've also added a new statistic for callbacks. So you can see the number of people who have requested a callback in the queue due to long wait times or anything like that. Statistic accuracy has also been improved. That was a big pain point with v41. We had a pretty large number of bugs regarding different call statistics, as well as what statistics were comprised of and what they meant. So not only have we improved the accuracy for that, we've also improved formatting for all of the statistics. So numbers and times and percentages are all showing in a uniform way. There's also improved descriptions of the statistics in the portal when you're actually viewing the reports, so you can see exactly what each statistic means and what calls are being included in those calculations, as well as the stats are also now clickable for a detailed view of calls, so you can see exactly what calls are being factored in and what calls are not. So here are some screenshots. It's a little bit difficult to see here, but this left-hand image here is for call center reports. So this is what it looks like when you click to view the reports tab. Rather than opening a modal, it actually just pops out into the main screen there. You can see the types that are visible there, and you can sort by queue stats. You also are able to filter and sort by the queues here. So each of these fields is sortable, and as you can see, you can mouse over the tooltip and it's a much better description. And those fields are also, like I said, clickable. And when you click into them, so here's another example of that updated reporting view with some bigger statistics. So you can see things, those percentages and those numbers are increasingly are more uniform now, so you guys can see what all of that looks like. And is like I said, you can see these numbers, they're hyperlinked blue down here. So when you click into them, you'll be able to see different reports. So this is a report of the service level statistic. You guys can see we have the date, time, and call history. There's also the ability to view the call trace as well as cradle to grave reporting, which we'll go over in a minute. And even highlighting the abandoned calls so you can see exactly what isn't meeting your service level and what is contributing to that lowering of your statistics. Additionally, we also have the ability to dispatch queue agents by user. So to talk about this feature, because it's been highly requested, just to make sure so everybody understands what we're referring to, when you add agents to a call queue, currently the only way to do it is to add it per device on v41. So you couldn't control or manage for things like call forwarding on the user's answering rules, do not disturb, things like that. It made it really difficult when people were trying to manage their own answering rules because they couldn't just log out or mark themselves on do not disturb. Now with v42, you will have the ability to dispatch users and it will follow their answering rules. Essentially, the way that it will work is it will, if you have a forward to or a simultaneous ring set up on the answering rules of that user, the call queue will then respect that. The only time it will not be respected is if you have the rule forwarding to some kind of application. So if it's going to a voicemail or an auto attendant, the call queue will essentially ignore that and not ring the user so that you don't have calls accidentally going to voicemail. Per device dispatching will still remain. So it is you have the ability to do either or. It is not just one or the other, and we're not getting rid of per device queues because I know that there are some people who do still prefer that functionality. You will still have the ability to convert device-based queues to user-based queues. So it's going to be very simple for those existing, especially my white label and channel partners, for your existing clients who have been set up. There's going to be a single button you guys can click, swap them over, and it is very simple to do. I'll show you in the screenshots now. And as before, statistics will still be counted per user, regardless of the call queue type that you choose to use, just to make things simple for reporting and things like that. So just as before, you're not going to see statistics on availability based on 1000 and 1000A. It's just still going to be 1000. And Tony here saying so many new features, and yes, it is so exciting. This is one of my favorite updates to date. But anyway, going into some screenshots here so you guys can see. So here on the left-hand side, this is a screenshot of the call queues view. If you guys take a look here, you're able to see these users here that have a little picture of the person. These are user-based, so you can actually tell, while at these down here that have a little picture of a phone are device-based users. So like I said, you can mix and match. Because I have some device-based users here, I do have the ability to convert agents here at the bottom, and if I click it, I can convert, and all of those remaining agents will, and those three Rowan Berry agents will just be converted into users. So it's very easy to do, and it's really exciting. If you want to, you'll also notice when you're adding agents in the call queue, you'll see the ability to select whether you want to add them by user or by phone. So you'll have the ability to choose either way there. And again, you can mix and match. So it doesn't have to be that everyone is a user. If there are certain people who only want a single device to ring, you can still have that functionality for them. Now let's also talk about cradle to grave reporting. Cradle to grave reporting is a brand new feature, and it's one of the few that is something that has been brought in completely new. It's not adding on or enhancing any functionality as far as existing behavior, and it is a big help, especially for white label partners and channel partners who are looking to do a lot more troubleshooting and have a hard time reading call traces. We all know call traces can be extremely difficult to read at times. They're just a lot of data, a lot of sifting through things. And as helpful as they can be, it's just something that not everybody has a lot of time for. Cradle to Grave gives you an easy and simple way to understand the call transitions and the path and flow of the call. It's still basing itself off of the event data, just like a call trace does. But it also combines multiple related call legs. So when you're doing things, trying to figure out if someone was parked or transferred, or if there was a three-way conference or anything like that, all of that is in the cradle to grave reporting, and it's very easy and simple to understand, so you can follow the flow as easily as possible. To go over some screenshots here, so this is an example of cradle to grave. The cradle to grave option will appear in your call history right next to the call flow or to the call trace button. So it looks just like that, and you can mouse over it and click on it. When you click on it, it will pop up a little modal just like you see here. And as you can see, it is very straightforward. It shows you when the call came in, where the call went, what they pressed, and then what happened as a result of them pressing it. It is very 1, 2, 3 easy steps for anyone to follow to make life as easy as possible when troubleshooting, so that if you're not looking for anything crazy and you don't need to deep dive too far in, you still have the ability to troubleshoot without spending all of those extra hours trying to figure out what an invite has and what the SDP information contains and all of that fun stuff. That being said, call traces are still extremely valuable. And so because of that, call trace redesign was something that absolutely had to happen with the incoming of v42. The call trace view has been completely redone. They've changed the UI for a better user experience completely. They also have combined all traces, combined call traces across multiple cores into a single trace. So before, if you had any cross-core calling, you would have to provide separate call traces for each individual one. Now you can view all of that within a single call trace. We've also improved retention of call traces. So before, if you were doing, if you only had a call trace and it had been over 7 days, the likelihood of you being able to get that back was significantly lower. Now we've improved that retention. You guys can see call traces much faster and much for much longer periods of time. The sharing options have also been improved. If any of you have viewed a call trace and tried to get it to support, we've had the conversation of having to click that export button or that download CSV. The sharing options have now been improved, so it's much easier to share just the link or to download that export if you really want it. And we've added a full trace searching tool. So if you're extremely familiar with call traces and you know how they all work, it makes life really easy because you can just type and search what you're looking for, a particular key phrase or word, and you don't have to be sifting through different switch logics. This here is an example of a call trace now. So as you can see, again, there's no more modal. It just pops up right into that portal view, so you can see it immediately. You still have the dates and times here, but rather than showing you a bunch of different times, you can see now we're giving you the difference in time that has passed. So you don't have to do that math anymore. You can just see exactly when that happened after its previous point. You still have your call legs here and the rows, and you have the switch logic that you can click into, but you have the right-hand side, but as you can see now it's color-coded. It's much easier to read, and the extension is now showing up. So before, this would show the IP address of the carriers. Now you can actually see the phone numbers and extensions that you're talking about, so you don't have to be going through and referring back to the switch logic and invite information to figure out what extension was responding in what way. Another example of the call trace redesign here. So I've moved in my view, and I'm searching now here using the call search feature for the word invite. So I have 29 matches, and it's going to highlight everything that says invite so that it's easy as possible for me to look for what I'm looking for, to find what I'm looking for in this call trace. You also have the share button. So before, you had to open it and then copy the link, or you could export a CSV, which was confusing. Now you can just click share, and it will automatically generate that link and copy it to your clipboard. You can paste it and send it to support without any problems. Let's talk about some SNAPMobile Web Enhancements. These are amazing, in my opinion. They are quite massive and probably one of the more in-depth new features of this update. First of all, mic and speaker selection in the app. Mic and speaker selection was a big pain point, especially when you're setting up SNAPMobile, because it was a real pain in the butt. You had to make sure that the Chrome browser was set up properly, that it was using the right mic and speakers. And if that wasn't the mic and speakers that you were using normally, you would have to keep switching in between them, and it was just difficult and unmanageable. Now we've added in the settings, we've added a mic and speaker selection functionality, as well as a call waiting tone. So now you can control the settings that you can view there. We've also improved browser notifications to include answer support. So when you receive incoming calls, you can answer right from the browser notification if you have those enabled, or reject the call at the same time. We've also added call parking support. Previously, you could only park by transferring calls to the call park, or using the attendant console, which isn't particularly great, because if you're using a desk phone or the mobile app, you would be able to just use a speed dial. So not having that really made it annoying if you were using call parking quite a lot. So we've added call parking support there, so you can easily just click the park button to put the call away. Additionally, we've also added some enhancements for call center agent users. So call center agents who are now using SNAPMobile Web will have the ability to see their queues and statistics from within the SNAPMobile Web app. They will have the ability to log in and out per queue or globally if they're in multiple call queues. They'll also get inbound notifications just like everyone else, but those inbound notifications will show what queue the call is coming from. So if you have multiple call queues, you will have the ability to see where that is coming from. And we also have added support for auto answer. If you have that enabled for SNAPMobile Web for your agents, they will now be able to automatically answer the call there. Moving into some screenshots. So this is the updated SNAPMobile Web portal. As you can see, this is my call center view. I have my main queue that has 5 agents in it and no one waiting. These are some statistics that you can see. Obviously, this is a testing one, so there were no calls, but you can see them modify and they get updated automatically. This little park button that is visible here, so any calls that are in a call park, I can press that and view them and pick up whatever calls I need to pick up. And then, of course, my settings, like I mentioned before, your microphone and audio output, as well as a call waiting and ringtone if you want to enable or disable that. And your options for going online or offline when you're inside of the call queue. Now, this is a very big one, Enhanced 911 support. Enhanced 911 support is going to be released by the end of 2021. It is simultaneously a new feature and a modification of the old way of doing Enhanced 911. So for those of you who are unaware, with Enhanced 911 or E911, traditionally the way that you would do it is you would have a phone number set as the 911 caller ID for a user, a domain, a site, a device The 911 caller ID would then be registered to a 911 address, and when you would call 911 or 933, that 911 number would be what is sent to the PSAP. The PSAP would then look up the address and relay that information to emergency services. So that was essentially how that worked. This can be problematic at times if you have multiple locations and not a bunch of phone numbers. You would have to essentially buy phone numbers just to be able to use E911 and have that set appropriately. With enhanced 911 support being set, now we are, rather than registering the address with our underlying carrier and with the PSAP, we are setting that address and storing it on the core. You still have the ability to set defaults at the domain level and configure it on a per user basis, but you can also add additional location data for each user and device. Now, we do still support legacy E911 for existing clients, of course, so you will still be able to manage that there. Just because this is being added, your existing clients are not going to lose the ability to call 911. But one of the benefits of this is, rather than sending that 911 caller ID, the address information is being included in the information of the call itself natively. So there is no having to look up that 911 address or make sure that it is being updated. There is also the notification, the portal will also now be notifying users to update their service address if the IP address of their registered phone changes. So just like instead of having to remember to update their address or notify you, the portal can now update them automatically and have them update their address on their own. Now, some of you may be wondering why this is so important and why it matters so much. Firstly, I want to talk about what PIDF-LO is. PIDF-LO stands for Presence Information Data Format Location Object. Essentially what it is it's an XML tag format that includes a location object. When you make a call using PIDF-LO technology, that location object, like I said, is included in the native call information and is immediately sent to the PSAP. The reason that this is so important is because of Kerry's Law and the Ray-Baum Act. These are two laws concerning E911, two federal laws concerning E911 specifically, and they have three major requirements. The first requirement is that callers have to be able to dial 911 without the need to dial a prefix. That is already in place and has been since well before 2018 on our platform. The other requirement is that notifications to designated personnel when a 911 call has been made should also be configured. So when someone calls 911, you should have the ability to notify someone that a 911 call has been made in the building. And the third one, which is the most important and relevant to this particular feature, is that dispatchable location information must provide information necessary to adequately identify the location of the calling party. What that means is that that just adding the address is no longer viable. It's no longer enough. If I were to call 911 from a 4-story building in an office somewhere in that building, there would be no way for 911 just from my address to know where in that building I was. So dispatchable location information includes things like floor, suite, room number, location on a floor, for example, like the northeast wall, something like that. This particular requirement is going to go into effect for voice providers starting January 6th, 2022. So like we said, PIDF-LO will be enabled and available to partners by the end of this year, so you will have plenty of time to be able to get your existing clients moved over and get set up with the service so that your new clients can start using it immediately as well. Some screenshots just to show what PIDF-LO and E911 will look like going forward. So as you can see, there's no longer that 911 caller ID when you add an address. You're just entering the domain, the name of the address if you have multiple locations here, a caller name, as well as the address itself still being validated, but also a location field where you can enter more specific information there. When you add a user, you'll also notice that you have emergency address information here, but you can also add a location description specifically for that user or for that device right here as well. So the idea here is to make sure that it is as specific as possible no matter what. And as you can see, we still have the ability to control 911 caller ID. So like I said, if there is no PIDF-LO information located on the domain, when someone makes a call to 911, the system will automatically fail over to the legacy E911 caller ID information and send that instead. So for the time being, you do still have the ability to use both features. And once the new feature is released, we are not getting rid of E911 at this point. Some other screenshots here. I mentioned notifications briefly regarding people being notified when someone calls 911. Now, when you edit or create a domain, you will also have the ability to notify either via phone call, via a message on the phone, or via email when someone has made a 911 call. So when you notify via phone call, as you can see, you can select an extension to call. Via phone message, that's literally a pop-up message that appears on the phone. At this time, only Yealink and Polycom support 911 emergency messages, so also be aware of that. It is going to be that it is just going to be those two devices at this point in time. But you can have it notify via phone message or via email. So for my white label partners, if you want to be notified when someone calls 911, you will still have the ability to do that in addition to having someone get notified. Speaking of unified QoS, like I said, this will also be released by the end of 2021. This will be the ability to view QoS scores from any core in the manager portal, as well as accessing QoS monitor by clicking on your scores and unified login for all of those QoS monitor cores. I know this has been a big pain point for our white label partners, especially those on San Jose and New Jersey, because they don't have the ability to view the QoS scores that our Atlanta core does. This is a feature that is coming with v42 and that will be released by the end of the year. Now let's go ahead and talk about some minor improvements that have come with the v42. All of those features are of course extremely exciting, but these are just some of the improvements that we have added in addition to those features. First of all, G722 is now supported for Snap HD calls. Max list view, this really goes back to that responsiveness of the portal, increasing that and making it a better user experience. Now you can increase, now the max list view size has changed from 100 to 2000 when you're viewing call queues or auto attendance. So you can see significantly larger numbers if you need them. Agent sorting status, when you're viewing things in Snap Analytics or in the call center view, they'll now actually sort by on a call, available, or offline in that order. We've also improved call recording quality, added WebSocket support for new voicemail notifications. So with WebSocket support, I'm referring specifically to SNAPMobile Web. SNAPMobile Web, previously, if you left a voicemail, you would have to either refresh or wait several minutes to be able to see that voicemail appear. We've updated how the WebSocket is polling for new voicemails, so you'll get those notifications much faster in the portal and in the SNAPMobile Web app. We've also improved support for inbound multimedia messages, meaning now you guys can receive media and text in the same message. Previously, if you tried to send an image and a text in the same message, you weren't able to do that. You wouldn't receive the message. We've also improved the mobile support for Snap HD, and coming, I believe, 2022, just a little feature. Of course, Snap HD support in the Snap mobile app, I believe, is coming in 2022, hopefully soon. We've also added Fanvil support for Fanvil devices, so you can now add those devices for provisioning as well as Snap Builder availability. I believe there were some Fanvil users who had been asking for that for quite a while. So now you can use those devices, you can add those devices as hardware rather than registering them manually. We've also added an API, included an API to add a callback state to allow for some outbound dialing options. So people who have talked about paging functionality or callback functionality in terms of, you know, when voicemails get left or things like that, this has been added to the API. So you guys can now go ahead and do that via the API as well. Going over some bug fixes, like I said, these are just a small amount of the bug fixes that occurred in the portal or that have occurred with this new update. Over 75% of this major update was bug fixes, but these are just some of the bigger pain points that I know some of our clients had. First one on the list was placing an interdomain call on hold or transferring an interdomain call. Previously used to show the extension of the caller or the extension of the user. So if you were calling from one domain to another and they transferred you, it would show your extension rather than your caller ID, which would cause a lot of confusion. That has been resolved. We've also added an issue or fixed an issue where the auto attendant option, if you had it a message being played on the second tier of an auto attendant, it would overwrite the message on the first tier. That has been resolved. We fixed the issues with importing phone numbers as to SIP trunks was having an issue where they would not configure properly. So even though they were imported and they showed up in the portal, they were not being routed in the right way. That has been resolved. There was an intermittent issue with Snap Analytics not loading the agent card. So that's also been resolved. And like we talked about, as well as those call center statistics have been vastly improved and made more accurate. The SNAPmobile Web button, for those of you who might have noticed, if you went into the attendant console right now and you tried to go and clicked on apps and then SNAPmobile Web, that did not work previously. That has now been resolved. We can also now accurately see the push-enabled function using SNAPmobile Web or SNAPmobile. So if you go into the devices and the phones tab of a user, you can see whether or not push is enabled, even if recording is enabled as well. Previously, if you tried to turn on call recording for a device and they were registered and showed push enabled, the device would show as deregistered, even though that wasn't necessarily the case. So that has also been resolved. Missed call email notifications will also now show the first and last name of the user that missed the call. And we've corrected an issue with recipients where an email if a user had multiple email addresses set on their user, they would receive the first email address on the list would not receive any email notifications. That has also been resolved, so now everyone is receiving notifications properly. And of course, guys, like I said, those are just a few of the massive number of features in this update. If you would like to view our full list of release notes, you can do so at voipdocs.io under the announcements section. If you click on release notes, you'll see our v42 release notes, or view this link here. Now, v42 will be pushed to production tomorrow night, Thanksgiving, November 25th, overnight, meaning Friday morning when you guys come back from the holiday, you will see the production on the newest version. And again, just as a reminder, because it is extremely important, the RABOM Act the dispatchable location information for 911 will be a requirement for VoIP providers starting January 6th, 2022. So put that on your calendars. Make sure you have that scheduled, especially white label partners, making sure that your end users are configured properly. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump to see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, while we see if anyone has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and actually discuss the upcoming events that we have for the next couple of weeks. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it down below And Marissa will be sure to answer that. So this week we just got wrapped up with our partner first, the Human Stack, a guide to customer success for MSPs. That was a live workshop with Marnie of Lifecycle Insights. If you missed that, go ahead and catch that on our YouTube channel. On December 1st, we're actually having a partner first with Cognition 360. That will be ConnectWise Business Insights with Aaron Kennedy and Christy Perez, and Ray will be the host on that. We're also we're sponsoring the Christmas event presented by Everything MSP. So it's 25 days of giveaways. All you guys have to do is just register on Santa's nice list. That's running from December 1st through December 25th. A very merry MSP Christmas. On December 8th and December 9th, we're going to be physically at the ASCII Small Business IT Success Summit and Cup Party in Anaheim, California, which will be our last physical show of the year. And then on December 9th, we're going to be hosting the Tech Bar live from the ASCII Cup Party as well. So make sure to tune in on that. We'll have a virtual one. We'll be there. So if you're around in Anaheim, California, come meet us. Come meet the team. Sean and myself will be there as well. Um, that's pretty much what we had for upcoming events. I do not see any questions, Marissa. Uh,
Yeah, I must have done a good job.
That's
All right.
amazing. One thing that I do want to bring up before we wrap up, the presentation is available now in Partner Central. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to our tech team, or orders team, or Marissa, which I'm sure they'll be able to assist.
Absolutely. And the video itself, this will be available right after we wrap this up here, right, Simon? The YouTube video will be
Yep, it will be
live.
available on YouTube, Facebook, and then you guys will have it on our Partner Central portal as well. And since nobody had any questions, YT family, it was good talking to you guys. We hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we hope to catch you guys on the next Partner First webinar.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.